Jorge, I don't know. This might be too glamorous a look again. I'm setting my bar too high these days, let me tell you. Well, hey, dolls. It's me, Wilma Fingerdoo, with the Fingerdoo review of RuPaul's Drag Race Season 15, Episode 5. And before we get started, I need to draw your attention to a situation that's happening here in Ontario, Canada. The students of Low Ellen Park Secondary School were looking forward to the Courage Across Canada Reopening with Pride Tour 2023 on February 10th, but it was canceled for being too political. This is an event sponsored by the Government of Canada and Air Canada, and that is taking place in cities across Canada. It's hosted by Canada's Drag Race Season 2 winner Isis Couture and includes Kimora Amour, Kimmy Couture, and Suki Doll, just to name a few. The students have an online petition to reinstate the event and asked me to get the word out. I put a link to their petition in the description box down below. There's less than 2 weeks for the students to try and turn this decision around. So if you could go and sign it right now, you'd be making some students in Northern Ontario very grateful. Go on. Sign it now. I'll wait. I'd also like to thank this week's YouTube tipper dues, Rainer Viluma and K-Stat, as well as my regular tipper dues, Glenn Gore, Sean Todd, and my tipper do boyfriend, Vito. I love you all, seriously. I'd also like to send a shout out to Miranda and Zachary, who not only sent me a tipper do, but are part of my Fingerdoo family on Patreon. Your Auntie Wilma loves you, Zach, and I'm sending you an extra big hug this week, Miranda. I love you both, seriously. If you'd like to help support the Fingerdoo review with a tipper do, the link is in my description box down below, and well, the YouTube button is just under this window. It looks like this. Just saying. Now, Jorge, drink me! Oh, look at this! Is this ginger ale and cran? Wildberry kombucha. Oh, sounds like you might need a shot for that. I've never had kombucha before. Do they all taste like this? That's gorge. Yummy. So the queens kicked the week off by saying goodbye to sugar. Now all of a sudden this titty seems to acknowledge that either of the twins had feelings. Well, how could you not when Spice was having a total breakdown reading her sister's lipstick message? Seriously. Of course, the rest of the queens reminded Spice that she's not alone. They're all here for her. Well, most are here for her. Okay, maybe it's half. I love that Lucy took a moment to praise Mistress for being right in Untucked when she said she was second last week, when Marcia Cubed wrongly thought that she was second. Unless she was trying to admit she was number 2. Oh! By the way, shame on the haters out there who take this TV show too seriously and petitioned to get Mistress wrongfully suspended by Instagram. This is a TV show, people. Calm down. Watch them come for me now. As the queens de-dragged, Spice vented to Mistress that, well, some of the queens who remained didn't deserve to be there over sugar. Well, that went over well with the eavesdroppers, I'm just saying. So much so that Aura brought it up the next day. Of course she did. She's insecure. Thankfully, Ru interrupted them with a mini challenge. And not just any mini challenge. The library was open because reading is what? Fundamental. Yes, it is. But apparently still not worthy of cutting into the most unwatched TV show in history. Did you hear how badly WeHo Friends did? No? Well, guess. Then divide that number in half. Do they give ratings to TV shows with negative numbers? So, because there were 13 queens, most of them only had one of their reads aired, and in some cases, that was a gift, I'm just going to say. Malaysia went first. Her one read towards Sasha was a dig about her age. Meh. Amethyst's read towards Spice about wondering if there was a volume lower than mute was cute. Estity's reading Amethyst for being in the bottom twice got better when she said Robin Fierce was another bottom she'd been in. Dirty. Lux's read about Marsha getting all her drag from Marshalls was hilarious. Good for Lux. Mistress got 2 reads aired. The first one told Anitra that even though she can walk that duck, she can ditch that beak. And her second read was that after hearing Lucy sing, she understands homophobia. I thought that was funny. Jax tried to read Lux Noir London by saying her three names should be shut the F up. Lux immediately read Jax back by pointing out that that was 4 words. Spice told Lucy she wasn't loose. She was gaping. Well, that explains the echo. Robin read Malaysia by saying that Baby Doll had gone through puberty. Okay. Marcia said it wasn't fair making Spice continue in the competition without the other half of her brain. Aura alluded that Jax was a dog. Jax alluded that Aura wanted to, well, F her. I don't think either were that funny. Sasha was another queen who got 2 reads aired. She said that Mistress Isabel Brooks' initials, MIB, stood for Major Intestinal Blockage, and that Anitra's name sounded like the insurance company Lucy had to call after getting her shoddy facelift. Has Lucy had a facelift? Hell, I'd call that insurance company too. Anitra's read for Robin Fierce was swipe left. Lucy clearly did the best because she got 3 reads aired. I thought telling Malaysia to commit to her name and disappear like that flight was dark until she told us titties that Yolanda shot the wrong Selena. Thankfully, she ended on a less dark note by pointing out that all of Mistress's kitten heels started out as stilettos. Needless to say, Lucy won the mini challenge. Of course she did. She's so mean. But there was no time to linger because it was time for this week's Maxi challenge. The queens would be turning home decor into haute couture. That's right, it was the unconventional sewing challenge. The queens would be split into 3 teams representing 3 fashion houses and reinventing home furnishings inspired by the judges, Carson, Ross, and Michelle. What, there couldn't be a 4th house, the house of T.S. Madison? Seriously. Not only would the queens have to create a signature look for themselves out of home decor, but it would also have to work with the rest of their team to represent a cohesive collection. So now we're watching Project Runway? Working with a variety of plaids and flannels from the House of Cressley were Anitra, Estides, Jax, and Robin. Although, why no one questioned plaids and flannels where Carson was concerned is anyone's guess. Seriously, has Carson ever worn a plaid or a flannel on Drag Race? Ever? Working with flowery prints and bright colors from the House of Matthews were Lucy, Marcia, Malaysia, and Sasha. And finally, using an array of animal prints and bougie textures from the House of Visage was Lux, Amethyst, Aura, Spice, and Mistress. Hey, you can take the girl out of Jersey, but you can't, well, stop her from dressing like a whore. As if you'd want to. And yes, Bougie Textures was my drag queen name in high school. How cute was Spice cutting open a pillow for the fabric instead of just unzipping it? In her defense, she did admit that Sugar was the sewer and she was the designer. Bless. As far as directions went, because the House of Visage were working with a lot of purples and golds, their theme was royalty. Spice planned to turn her slut-inspired look into a princess look by wearing a tiara. So young. The House of Matthews was leaning towards a prep school Heathers theme with all their plaids. Estides seems super excited with this challenge because, well, she usually makes all her own outfits. Malaysia was bricking it a bit because she's never sewn anything in her life. That said, with all the bright colors and palm leaf prints, the House of Matthews was leaning towards resort wear. As the queens got down to it, Rue dropped by to check in on the house's directions. House of Cressley was first. Rue was very impressed to see that, well, they could all sew. Robin shared her asymmetrical vision and hoped it wouldn't look a mess. Speaking of messes, Rue clearly thought the library was still open, alluding that Estides was a mess. What she meant to say was Estides had no taste. Just saying. House of Visage was next. This team had 5 queens, but only 3 of them could sew. Amethyst got called out by Rue for not winning any challenges and being in the bottom, which, well, really seemed to boost her esprit de corps. Spice told Rue that their aesthetic was royal and grand as long as they all looked hot. Rue seemed less than impressed. No visit with the House of Matthews? Apparently there wasn't time. As the queens worked on their outfits, Malaysia got caught up in trying to turn a shower curtain into something. No one was impressed. After Rue's less than positive reaction to the House of Visage's direction, Mistress wanted to shift their vision to animal print formal wear. Luxx wasn't thrilled, but went with the flow by deciding she would create pants to go with her royal theme. Who else was surprised to see Luxx being a team player? Seriously, I'm surprised she didn't put up more of a fight. Jax was too focused on finding out who Spice thought should have been in the bottom instead of Sugar. Spice said nothing, sadly. I'm with Mistress. I wish Spice would just up and own it by admitting she was talking about Aura. Everyone knew. Aura was very judgy towards her teammate Amethyst for not being able to sew, which was very helpful. Said no one ever. But I have to say, once again, that Luxx surprised me by trying at least to help Amethyst edit her vision, even though Amethyst had no idea how to execute her suggestions. This is not a good week to be Amethyst. Have any of them been? And then it was Elimination Day. Jax talked about being adopted by white people and growing up in Connecticut. It was hard for her to be one of only 3 POCs in her school. She was so aware of how differently her white parents were treated by others compared to the cold reception she got. Hearing that broke my heart. Seriously, thankfully, that changed when she got out of Connecticut and headed to New York, where there were way more people who looked like her. Something for the Connecticut Tourism Board to consider, I'm just saying. Spice talked about her secret shame of owning dolls as a teenager and beyond, and how she and Sugar would play with them and do their makeup and hair before they discovered drag and became their own dolls. I could have used a couple of dolls growing up, I'm just saying. And then it was time for the runway. I thought Ru was looking a little rough in yellow. That wig. Am I right? Michelle, on the other hand, was the queen of the beehives. Ross was downplaying it this week in a multicolored blouse complete with pussycat bow. And joining the judges this week, the luminously lovely Janelle Monae working the hell out of a graphic zebra stripe. I love her! Category is Drag Race Fashion Week. The House of Visage kicked things off with Mistress looking gorgeous in a leopard bustier with black skirt, long trench, and a purse, although her fascinator did get a little lost in her wig. But seriously, she set that fashion bar high. Fingerdoo for Mistress, seriously. Aura's 2-piece zebra print looked a little cheap, and I wish that that gold cape thing off her back was longer, and that she'd ironed it. Sorry, but that was a finger don't for me, seriously. Amethyst didn't look as bad as I thought she was going to. That gold fabric draped well, and I loved the wig, so I gave her a Fingerdoo, I'm just going to say. Don't hate me. Spice looked hot in a zebra 2-piece, but where was the tiara? Still, Fingerdoo for Spice. The star of the House of Visage was clearly Luxx Noir London. Being the only one to use that purple satin really set her apart, and those zebra pants were gorgeous. Fingerdoo for Luxx. All in all, I felt that the House of Visage had a cohesive look. The House of Cressley was next. Robin Fierce kicked things off in a blue plaid and tan leather ensemble that wasn't terrible, so I gave her a Fingerdoo. The worst thing about Jax's look was that wig. Fingerdoo, I'm just going to say. She killed me with that wig. Anitra looked cute in her crop top, but where was the rest of it? Still, what was there looked pretty good, so I gave her a Fingerdoo. You heard me. Titties didn't look as bad as I was expecting, and I like that overcoat transitioning into a train. She certainly sold the hell out of it, so I gave her a Fingerdoo. All in all, there was a definite cohesion with the House of Cressley, although I will say Titty's color story set her apart, and not in a good way. Lastly, we had the House of Matthews. Sasha Colby looked gorgeous in her green halter top bathing suit and flowing cover-up. Clearly this was a Fingerdoo for Miss Colby. How could it not be? Look at her. Lucy looked vintage in a pantsuit, and by vintage, I mean old. Tell me I'm wrong. Fingerdoo for Lucy, sorry to say. Malaysia looked way better than I thought she was going to. Even that shower curtain cape worked with her hat and purse. Fingerdoo for Malaysia, baby doll fox. Seriously, I was gagged. Marsha Cube was definitely wearing more makeup, but it was still pretty minimal. Speaking of pretty, I liked her crop top and circle skirt, so I gave her a Fingerdoo. One thing that was sure, there was a cohesive look to this collection. Probably the best of the night, I'm just going to say. Before the judges' critiques, Ru announced that Mistress Isabel Brooks, Aura Mayari, Spice, Anitra, Lucy LaDuca, and Marsha were safe, so they thankfully frigged off out of there. As for the rest of the queens, Michelle liked Amethyst's nose contour better than her outfit, and the rest of the judges agreed. Lux's runway was a huge hit with the judges, especially Janelle Monae, who felt the black and white pants were serving the house of Monet rather than the house of Visage. I'd visit that house. Robin's look went over well with the judges, but no one seemed to like Jax's look, although it was well sewn. It just needed a better fit and some shoulder pads. Seriously. Estidi's outfit, as far as Ross was concerned, was all too much. Janelle agreed that she could have simplified it, but she loved her effort. Everyone loved Sasha's swimsuit, but her cover-up put the water in the pool. Although, Miss Monet did notice Sasha struggling to take it off as a feature. I like Sasha's excuse that the universe didn't want her to show her butt on TV. I like that. I'm going to blame the universe more often in the future. Malaysia was another fave of Janelle's, and the fact that it was the first thing Malaysia had ever sewn impressed the judges even more. Back in the Untucked lounge, there was a lot of mixed feelings. Utra thought her outfit was better than safe, but she wasn't complaining much. In her defense, the other queens were impressed by how well finished her look was. Personally, I think it would have looked even more finished if there'd been a bottom half to it. Just me. Spice alluded to Lucy that her outfit looked old, and she wasn't talking in a vintage kind of way. She meant like a nice old, well, she didn't say grandma, but you could see it right there on the tip of her tongue. Lucy wasn't insulted much. She admitted that she was way nicer in drag. Something she proved by winning the reading challenge. Seriously. Still feeling burned. Mistress was okay with being safe, but she thought she'd pulled out all the stops by using non-stretch fabric to make her bustier, and made a bag and hat. On another note, Malaysia was impressed that Spice was safe, especially since it was her first week on her own. All the queens were. Spice even admitted that she was still looking around the workroom expecting to see Sugar, and she wasn't there. This impressed the other queens that she did so well on her own, which inspired Spice to ask if any of them knew any twins or triplets. Marcia Cubed surprised me by saying that she had a twin sister. I was shocked. After all this time being around a set of twins, she hadn't mentioned it once and didn't go into details. Anitra has 3 younger siblings, but doesn't know if they know about her drag because, well, she doesn't talk to her family. This was clearly an emotional topic for her, and even though she loves her chosen family, it was hard for her not to miss them. Bless. Mistress admitted that she doesn't talk to her family either, but her attitude was F them. If they don't want to know her, it's their loss. Well said, Mistress. Here's to you, seriously. Aura, on the other hand, was very close to her mother, who apparently had trans friends herself and didn't keep them from Aura as Aura was growing up. Of course, this helped Aura know who she was from a very young age. I was impressed. Here's to Aura's mom. Seriously, I also was interested to hear how Aura doesn't like to share how good she had it growing up because she doesn't want to disregard other queens' struggles. Here's to Aura too, bless. When the rest of the queens arrived, it was immediately revealed that the top girls were Lux, Malaysia, Sasha, and Robin. But Malaysia was sure that she and Lux were in the top 2. I don't think she was wrong. The bottom girls obviously were Estides, who was not taking it well at all, and Amethyst, who was clearly defeated. She called herself the bottom girl and that she always would be. She felt she was way out of her league with the other queens. They tried to lift her up, but clearly the damage was done and her fire was dimming fast, bless. Malaysia crowed up a storm. She was so chuffed to have done well. And so she should be, pun intended. This was the first thing she had ever sewn and she totally killed it. Seriously. Estides was clearly having trouble hearing how well some of the other queens had done. So Sasha took her off to the side to give Estides a pep talk. Who else feels that Sasha Colby is a gift to the world? Just me? Of course, Janelle Monae dropped by to say hello. Oh, God, I just love her. She has such a regal countenance. So when she told the queens how inspired their creativity was to her, it was beyond touching. Marcia asked Janelle how she dealt with people who don't understand her. Get ready for the pearls, dolls. Janelle said no one can tell me about me and to allow her voice to be the loudest in the room. Her analogy about science fiction and the concept of the android representing the other, like blackness and queerness and minorities that are all overlooked, was deep and out there. But She made a great point. Humanity is not monolithic, but a spectrum. We're all capable of creating a U-print, not a blueprint. She told them to keep embracing the things that made them unique, even if no one else sees it. Girl, Mistress was right. Janelle was ministering to the children. She was so inspiring and empowering that we're all better for her visit to the Untucked Lounge. Seriously. Back on the main stage, Ru announced that Luxe was this week's winner. She was so gracious about it. In the bottom this week, as expected, were Jax, Amethyst, and Estides. But it was Jax who squeaked by again. And Amethyst and Estides who had to lip sync for their lives, bless them. They lip synced to Janelle Monae's Queen. Amethyst did okay, but Estides tried way harder, especially after her skirt strategically had a malfunction in time to the song lyrics. All in all, I thought both queens served it up, but when the music died, so did Amethyst's dreams of continuing on in the race, as Ru told her to sashay away. As disappointed as Amethyst was to be sashaying, I liked her attitude. She had only been doing drag for 2.5 years. She's going to be a force of nature in 2.5 more. Fingers crossed. So, what did you think? Was Lux's outfit all that, or did her attitude on that runway help put it over the top? Was Amethyst's outfit all that bad? Personally, I thought Jax's was worse, but then it's not called Wilma Fingerdoo's drag race yet. Either way, we're down to 12 queens. Who do you think is on the fast track to be the next to sashay away? Aura? Jax? What about Marcia Cubed? She lucked out this week, but could she survive another judge's critique? All we can do is tune in to RuPaul's Drag Race next week to see how it all plays out. And then when you're done, you come on back and you see me so you and I can compare notes. Now, please give this video a thumbs up because, well, you made it this far, so I know you liked it. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't. Check out the links in my description box for ways you can help support the Fingerdoo review. And until next week, kiss me! Mwah! Seriously. Jorge, this kombucha is delish. I'm really loving that Mistress. I'm telling you what, she's ministering to the children too, seriously. And Lucy, oh, she is pulling herself away from the herd. She is definitely a front runner. I'm hoping that Luxe is able to be gracious about winning a challenge. I mean, because she's only won the one. This is her first one, 5 episodes in. She could win more. I think she's capable of winning more, but I don't know. I just fear that her personality is going to rub the viewers the wrong way. Not that it would affect the judges' opinions of her. And Jax, good grief. She was in the top half that first week and has not been since. I just hope that she's not thinking she's better than she is. They all need to try harder. They all need to be better than they are because it's a contest. You don't just show up and be who you were at the bars. You need to be better, bigger, brighter, bluer.